Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Well, it is Thursday. I don't feel ready. Like, today should be a big day, I think. We got a lot of data here this morning. We had Federal Reserve yesterday. We had a bunch of the big tech companies report their earnings last night. And we're having some movement on the Iran front, and we're having some movement on the Japanese yen front. So I think that we should have some movement. Coming in here and looking at the treasuries, there is definitely a lot more level 2 activity going on. You can hear that click a lot. There's some big orders that are really moving around with things. And let's see here. We should also note that the micro 10-year is really, really light because, you know, it's basically rolls over, right? It's the last day of April, isn't it? Yes, today is the last day of April, so they can be switching over there. Well, before we go too much into everything that has happened, oh, and I should note, U.S. initial jobless claims, 189K versus the expected 212, so lower than expected. We also got, a bunch of other things. U.S. GDP quarter-over-quarter advanced 2 versus the expected 2.3. And, a bunch of other things. The only one that I see in all these numbers that really stands out to me is U.S. personal income month-over-month, spot 6 versus the expected spot 3. So that's unusually high. And maybe why the treasuries are down a little bit. But let's come over here, take a look at the chart. So here's the treasuries. Yesterday, well, some of that down. No, I don't think that downside action happened before that happened before we started trading, right? That blue line is when we start. No, I don't remember it moving that much yesterday. I don't know. But a little bit further and come back over there in the treasuries. Oh, but you know what? Oh yeah, here's the Federal Reserve meeting, right? So they kind of read it as hawkish, but maybe like no big deal. I don't know. Here's the S&P 500, and all this stuff that you see right here, that is the earnings. So it kind of looked to me like a lot of the initial information on the earnings and the knee-jerk reactions, pretty much all 4 of them, was negative to some extent. But really, it was like 2 of them did well and 2 of them did poorly. And overall, it looks like that the market is buying at the moment. So that's kind of curious. Oil, well, down big overnight, but there's been a lot of headlines over. I mean, it really sounds to me like some things happening that could lead to another round of escalations. So, gold and silver up though. That's interesting. And copper, not as much. But you know why the gold and silver are probably moving like that is because the dollar is moving. Oh yeah. Oh man, look at that. Woo. Okay. Yeah, so we had 2 comments from Japan basically saying that, like, now it's getting time for some intervention. So I don't think that they actually intervened. I think that was just a market going like, oh, we better get out of the way. So the dollar fell hard and the Japanese yen soaring there. How recent? Now when I come back down here, you can see that, like, here was one comment, here was the other comment. Okay. But we've been kind of pulling back for the last hour or 2. One last thing. Bitcoin. Here's Bitcoin. Little bit on the lower side of the range, I would say. Curious. Okay, so let's come back over to here. And stuff asks, when crash? Oh, jeez, I don't know. I would really like to see the AI bubble, you know, go away. But I think that, well, yesterday, yesterday was something where I kind of thought, hey, maybe this might be the moment where you get a really big, start to get a really big move. But given that the markets are technically higher, you know, I don't think that it's happening that way. Unfortunately. Not that we want to see like everybody lose money and everything. It's just we want to move on. I want to move on to something different than AI is in a bubble all the time. You know what I mean? Honestly, what I really want to see is I want to see the Iran conflict come to a close. Well, big story overnight from Axios kind of moved the markets a little bit. Let's read it. President Trump is slated to receive a briefing on new plans for potential military action in Iran on Thursday from CENTCOM Commander Administrator Brad Cooper, two sources with knowledge tell Axios. Why it matters, the briefing signals that Trump is seriously considering resuming major combat operations, either to try to break the logjam in negotiations or to deliver a final blow before ending the war. Behind the scenes, CENTCOM has prepared a plan for a short and powerful wave of strikes on Iran, likely including infrastructure targets, in hopes of breaking the negotiating deadlock, three sources with knowledge said. The hope would be that Iran would then return to the negotiating table, showing more flexibility on the nuclear issue. Another plan, expected to be shared with Trump, is focused on taking over part of the Strait of Hormuz to reopen it to commercial shipping. Such an operation could include ground sources, one source has said. Another option that has been discussed in the past and might come up in the briefing is a special forces operation to secure Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Trump told Axios on Wednesday that he saw the naval blockade on Iran as somewhat more effective than the bombing. Two sources told Axios that Trump currently sees the blockade as his primary source of leverage, but he would consider military action if Iran still won't cave. U.S. military planners are also considering the possibility Iran will take military action against U.S. forces in retaliation for the blockade. Driving the news, Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane is also expected to attend Thursday's briefing, the sources said. The White House did not respond to requests for comment. Flashback: Cooper gave Trump a similar briefing on February 26, 2 days before the U.S. and Israel launched the war against Iran. One source close to Trump said that briefing contributed to Trump's decision to go to war. So, I kind of am leaning towards that we may see some action, because I really don't think that the blockade is enough to bring them to the negotiating table. But you know what? I really don't think that any kind of military action, especially not any of the military action options that were presented there, would necessarily drive Iran to make a deal either. I think that these are ideologues, people that there is a radical religion behind it that they will fight to the death. And on top of that, you have leaders who are very, very cushy and very, very dependent on maintaining a complete hold on power in that country to maintain their wealth and not get killed. So be very, very difficult to dislodge them. Ofrey asks, where platform? You mean my platform? Do you mean my platform? I haven't had very much time to work on it this week, unfortunately. But we do have something kind of working. Yeah, we got
Block.
well, I haven't made a new build. So no, I'll show you this way though. Right here. And we can close the essay writing. Yeah, close that one. Maybe I should just make a new build. Ta-da! Not bad, yeah? So, the next thing that I was working on was watermarks. So, I already had like the plan drawn up and knew how I was going to do it and everything. But I've just been so busy this week for whatever reason. Is it rhythmic? Yes. Not only is it rhythmic, but it's using rhythmic plugin mode. Huh? So I have done something that I haven't seen anybody else do to get rhythmic plugin mode working on a platform that's not written in C#. Didn't want potential latency. I want to incorporate other data platforms. I want to incorporate Norgate. And I want to incorporate DX feed because you get order flow for stocks with DX feed. Those are the two big ones. And then any other platform that comes along, I guess. But still needs lots of work before it's usable, right? I want to, get all of the things with the chart working. So we'll have the watermark, have chart axes, be able to zoom and scroll on the chart, and then being able to change the instrument on the chart. Once we have all of those basic charting functions complete, then it will be off to some indicators. We'll make a basic order flow indicator, like a cumulative delta, and then our volatility. And once we have all of that, I think that I could... and another thing is to be able to pull the charts out into their own window. Optional. You don't have to. You can keep them all in the main window if you want. But then I could just have it sitting up here in the corner all the time like this. Ta-da. But right now, you get 1 minute bars and you see the whole thing. Cool. I'm also so far pretty happy with the code that I've been getting out of it. Like it's turning into relatively maintainable stuff and so forth. Like I'm able to make changes really easily. What do you mean takes the whole feed unlike Ninja? Ah. Well, I do not pay for MBO data, but we could very easily incorporate MBO, yes. Ah. Yes, you're... Oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. Yes, it does, in fact. Yes, that was... Okay, so that was a really interesting thing when I found that. I had not heard about that, and it's interesting that you know about it and are asking about it. So on Rhythmic, when you get data, like orders that come in, Rhythmic flags them as who the aggressor is. So all of this stuff that we're doing in NinjaTrader, etc., to determine who the aggressor is, using kind of fuzzy algorithms that aren't 100% accurate, Rhythmic is already flagging that. Now with MBO data, you can use MBO data to get the aggressor, but Rhythmic just gives the data feed that, which was really fascinating to me. I was kind of like, so if that's just in there, why aren't any of the platforms that I've tried using that? You would think that they would get on that, but I guess there's not much of an incentive to do it. Quant Tower has it, or at least has it exposed. I'm kind of starting to realize that there's many more places than I realized that NinjaTrader has kind of dropped the ball. And I wonder how widespread. Okay, so we're getting a little bit of a move up here. I'm kind of wondering, well, if we get some movement in the Japanese yen, that does oftentimes result in up moves in treasuries. But lately it has not been the case because the Japanese have to sell bonds to do their operations. Now, there's also ECB press conference going on right now, I think. So maybe that was to react to something Liquard said. Ninja is like 20 years. Well, but I don't think that NinjaTrader 8 is like 20 years old. I think it's like 10 years old. Yeah. Yeah, because I remember when I started, NinjaTrader 8 was like a relatively new thing and people didn't trust it. And a lot of people insisted on saying on NinjaTrader 7. I don't know how I feel. So it doesn't use the feed. It doesn't use the aggressor information in there. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about doesn't really express volume in a usable way. Because the way that the NinjaTrader functions work and the way that the API is exposed to you is really the best way to do order flow kind of stuff. Kind of gives you a way to aggregate it tick by tick. And almost every other platform that I've used, the way that stuff is exposed to you is a lot harder to work with. So I actually think that it kind of it has a really, really good API for writing order flow indicators. And I think it's the easiest to make order flow indicators in NinjaTrader compared to everything else. And that's one of the main reasons why NinjaTrader has by far the largest library and community of the futures-based platforms. Obviously, if you go to TradingView, then that's the largest ecosystem. But that one's kind of funny because the reason that one's the largest ecosystem is because TradingView is so accessible to everybody. I think that their programming language and what they expose to you over in TradingView is absolutely terrible. But our platform, when we get those things going, I think it should be very, very, very easy for us to make these sorts of things. And I'll have a bunch of other stuff kind of built in, like the being able to cache and save some of this information. Yeah. MBO is too big to leave off the table? I don't know if I don't know. Okay, you have to convince me. You have to convince me because I am not convinced that MBO data is that valuable to a retail trader. I am really interested. I am primarily interested in MBO because presumably we can use that to determine when stops are being converted into market orders. And that would be an interesting thing to study. I don't know if that piece of information actually holds edge on its own. You know? And some of this other stuff, like knowing how much of what's on there is one big order or not, I don't know if that actually helps us. The thing that will help us is being able to save and manage that market depth information so that you can train neural networks on it. And having a platform and a framework that actually lends itself towards doing that, instead of presenting a dozen hurdles that you have to jump over like NinjaTrader does. But the bigger thing though on the platform is that I think the platform is progressing way better and faster than I thought. I thought that getting something to this place would take me a really, really long time. And I guess I have AI to thank for that mostly. But you know, the Rust concepts that I need to understand and all of that sort of stuff wasn't as big of a reach for me as I thought. Yeah, how much agentic coding? I would say, well, there was a bunch of stuff at the very beginning that I really, really did by hand. And my agentic coding is extremely hands-on. I review every line. I'm giving it very detailed. So like a lot of people would say, okay, build me a trading platform that runs on Rhythmic in Rust, and then just like let it go. That's not what I did. I kind of already knew the classes and, well, you don't really use classes in Rust, but like the methods and the data structures and the libraries that I needed to use. I made all of those decisions and everything. And so the AI was primarily about, you know, just getting the syntax correct and all put in there. So and then I review the code. We have a code review afterwards, and all of this sort of stuff. So it's very far away from vibe coding, but like I wouldn't call it developer augmented either. I would say that probably at this point 80% of the code was put in there directly by Claude. Even though I'm prompting it differently, it was the one that edited the files. So I guess the thing is, you would come in and say, well, what is Seth doing that I couldn't do myself? But I really don't think that anybody else would create the same thing, something as effective as I have. Even if they had Mythos. And it's not just oh, I'm going to have the better ideas, because then you think, well, yeah, you have the better ideas, but then once you put them out, I can just copy them, right? No. There's things about the way that I do this process and my understanding of the technicals that if you vibe code it, Claude will screw up. And Claude screw up a lot on pretty much every feature that I've done. Claude has done something that I didn't like. I had to correct it. So But the top headline on Zero Hedge right now is Defiant Mojtaba Khamenei Gulf's future will be without U.S. presence and vows to protect nuclear program at all costs. That sounds like a challenge. You know what I mean? Like is that baiting? Baiting, or are they really making that mistake? Because if I'm President Trump and I'm reading that, what he's really saying is, hey, US, you should go and set up an operation and a base around where the nuclear materials are being held, and hold that for the month or two that would be required to dig all of the uranium out. Is there a way to start a chart in NinjaTrader 8 at a specific time? Not really. But there is a way for you to anchor any of your indicators to start at a certain time. Like, especially with VWAP, you can come in and you can say, if time is this, then reset the counter. Oh, and Uzi says that NinjaTrader 8 comes with an anchor. Oh, you're right. That was a recent change. I don't know if that was in the... Has the most recent version come out? I can't remember. The most recent version added a bunch of things that I had indicators for to do for you forever. Like it adds in the... like it adds in the watermarks, for instance. That was been put in last year, I think. Oh, I was gonna say it was not. Definitely was not the most recent release, but I do recall it being relatively new. There's I think there is a tool like that in the most recent one though. What am I thinking of? I just pull up the release notes. Oh, they haven't released it. Do you guys want to know what it is? I keep forgetting. We put this in and I haven't done a whole lot to promote it, but NinjaTrader does have an affiliate program and it should be in the video description. So... yeah, that's right. Okay, you want to hear what's going to be in NinjaTrader 817? I don't know if I'm allowed to tell you this stuff, but I don't think it matters. It's okay. I'm going to tell you. All right. The big feature release in NinjaTrader 817 is that the static super DOM is now available to all users. I think that was because having a static DOM was a feature that was controlled by trading technologies and was charging everybody else to put it in there. And I think it must have been a patent or something. I don't know anything about patents. I don't look at patents. But apparently there was like a patent that expired or something like that. So now NinjaTrader can give it to everybody instead of just the people that are paying. So static super DOM now available to all traders. Another one, and this is something that drives me crazy when people talk about that, but some people say that NinjaTrader is slower, that it only updates every 250 milliseconds or something like that, right? Well, that's wrong. Okay, NinjaTrader is updating constantly, especially when you're looking at like the order flow stuff. But the little price marker that you see on the chart, like this price marker right here that tells us that the current price is 110.19, right? That only updates every 250 milliseconds. So there were some creators out there on YouTube making videos showing, hey, NinjaTrader is really slow. It doesn't update very often, by just showing that price marker and how often that price marker changed. So the other big change that they're making in the new version is that the last traded price refreshes every 50 milliseconds now. That's just the price marker though, okay? Scroll wheel zoom for charts. You can zoom in and out with the scroll wheel now. There is a new calendar window with economic events listed. I don't know if I find that one particularly useful because, you know, I get that through the News Squawk, but for people that don't have a News Squawk, that's super interesting. Improved indicator descriptions. Okay. Market analyzer price change highlighting. So that's a weird one because I have that, but I had to customize my market analyzer to do that. So now it's built in. Kind of funny. Oh, apparently there's going to be a White House draft memo on AI. So a couple of those. Updated default workspace. Get started faster with redesigned default workspaces that highlight key platform features. Oh, that's just like the beginning ones. Yeah, mine does that too. I'm pretty sure that's an option in the, yeah. But I think that might be a little bit more flexible, like that the whole row highlights green or red. I haven't actually tried it, so. Okay, then another one is, and I'll just show you the picture, trade lines for all chart orders. So, some people were using custom indicators and things like that to more clearly show the entries and exits, because like you can see that when you're doing it in a like a back test, but not necessarily on the raw chart. So now they've kind of changed all of those. Okay. They have added the data series watermark on all charts. I hope they copied my code. That one was for you, NinjaTrader. I put all that stuff in the free thing, going, you know what, Ninja? It's really, this should just be put into the platform. I don't know why you don't have it in the platform. The only one that's remaining, if anybody from NinjaTrader is still listening, you should implement my candlesticks, because my candlesticks are faster. Which, by the way, I have on the Speculator Seth website. You should be able to download those. I don't want NinjaTrader's watermark on the... Are you talking about NinjaTrader like that in the bottom left? Or are you talking about the name of the chart? I like the name of the chart in the back. I'm going to make, at least in the default, you'll be able to get rid of it. I don't want either. Okay. I want a really cool watermark. That's the next feature that I'm adding into my platform. I want a really cool watermark. But I think I want a really cool watermark that's like a really fancy letter, you know, like a really elegant font, and then maybe like some sort of a glowing effect behind the text or something like that. And then you can turn it off if you want, right? This is another big one. I think that this is another big one. Enhanced color picker. Because, man, picking colors in NinjaTrader is such a pain in the butt. Finding the color that you want. Having a swatch like this, way better. Way better. Some indicators that were on the web are now in the desktop. Market watch. Look back view. I don't ever use that, so. Heat map display for volume profile. That one's kind of interesting. Instead of showing you a histogram, it does it with color. That's kind of cool looking. I don't think that it's particularly more useful or anything, but, you know, I could see why some people might prefer that. Yeah. Platform volume control. Control platform sounds directly in NinjaTrader with a new volume setting. Adjust alerts, order fills, and other system sounds without changing your system-wide audio. So you can make it not as loud. Because the notifications that come through are so effing loud. User-friendly text variables so that you can say what you... Well, this is already in there if you do the code, so that one's not like a huge feature, but yeah, whatever. You can customize the chart toolbar. That's pretty good. You can customize the drawing menu. That one I actually find really, really useful because it's so hard to find something in the drawing tools menu. I'm like, okay, which one is the one? When there's only like 2 that I actually use, right? If I ever use the drawing tools, I hardly ever use the drawing tools, right? You can add multiple playback accounts. I'm not sure what that's necessarily. Maybe that is when you're doing the playback, you can only do it 1 account at a time. And if you want to have 2 separate accounts and doing 2 at the same time, now you can do that. It's not a feature that I ever really used. And then there's lots of other like little tiny things. So the next update, and I don't know why they haven't released it yet because it's been in testing for a while. Probably they've got a bunch of stuff to fix on it. But the next update in NinjaTrader is pretty big. Pretty big. The next update in NinjaTrader kind of has me like, I won't be able to use it, and that's kind of a problem. I got used to Quant Tower, but to be honest, I'd mainly like it if NinjaTrader just got modernized. Yeah, me too. But you know what? I can't really put a finger on what it is about Quant Tower that I don't like. Because when I used Quant Tower and looked through the platform, everything that you needed was there. So maybe it's just what I'm used to. I don't know. I would really like to have a chart that looks unique. And I just haven't been able to think of, you know, what is a feature? What is the thing, the look that I can put in it that would really make it look different from everything else out there? And the only thing I can think of so far is, well, other than the colors that I use on these charts anyways, is a cooler looking watermark. There's got to be other cool things I can do. Maybe there's some cool things I can do with the axes. Can you answer about stir markets? Oh, did I miss a question you asked earlier? I'm sorry. I've been like so caught up yapping that I kind of missed a lot of comments. I need to come back and read everything. Do you use stir markets as a proxy when trading forced flows? So not really, though. That's kind of an interesting question. So, in fact, I don't know if I've ever pulled up the stir markets on, at least not on the DOM. I'm pretty sure that there are a few that I can pull up in a chart. I'm too lazy right now to pull up and look. But not everybody gets that data. I look at the stir markets more like, well, all of these things like FedWatch and some of these other tools on the CME that predict like what the chances of a rate cut are and those sorts of things. Those use the more short-term treasury markets. So, you know, that's kind of where I get that data from. Could we look at the stir markets? Because I would think that they would probably have a little bit different order flow over there, and that some of that order flow might be a little bit more bursty, like nothing happens there and then all of a sudden there's like tons of flow that comes through, sort of a thing. That might be the case, but I don't know. I think it's a good idea. It sounds like a good idea. It's hard to keep up with so many different things. So I would have to do like a deep study with it. Find some article that or some peer-reviewed study that tells me about the flows and the stirs and how it affects other things that says to me that looking at it could be an edge. You know, there's like, that's one of the struggles that you're going to have in trading once you really understand things, is that there's so much information, more than you can really keep track of. So which ones do you focus on, right? Well, maybe in our new platform, if we have things like machine learning and large language models kind of integrated into the platform, perhaps we could make some things that allow us to look at more stuff, right? Put some things on some of these markets, and then it would only bubble up to us when it actually mattered. And that would allow us to, you know, digest more information. Something that we should look at in the future. And there was another comment in here. I'm Arab, and what you've said about Iran is true. Politics in Iran and some other countries is based on religious beliefs and not pragmatism. Message will reach you late. I'm late in the... Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, well, you know, there's some unique things about Iran, too. Because the thing that I don't think we understand, like, this is something that, like, I'm vaguely knowledgeable about, but I really don't understand it, is that Iran is basically a conquered area. That it wasn't always Islamic, and it's only been Islamic relatively recently. And a large part of the population has resisted becoming Islamatized. Like, there is a relatively large section of the population that if everything was liberalized, they would stop being Muslim Go back to kind of what things were like before the revolution. That's really kind of curious, right? Because I kind of thought that, oh yeah, you know, Islam comes in and takes over an area and then they just have a complete stranglehold on it. But that's not what happened. That's not what happened in Iran, at least. But it might also explain why you're able to have such hardliners there. You know? Because there is some internal friction there. It's kind of like if in the United States, okay, either the left or the right kind of took over and implemented a military dictatorship in the United States, right? Because you have these internal frictions. Like, let's just say that it was the leftists that took over. They didn't implement socialism, but the leftists take over and implement a democrat or a military dictatorship. I'll pick the Democrats because I think most of my audience are Republicans, right? Well, there might be other countries out there that would have friction with that new military dictatorship. Maybe they would say, we don't want that new military dictatorship to have access to the United States nuclear weapons, right? And those people within the military and whatever, that they would be extremely radicalized because of the internal friction, the internal battles that we've been having here in the United States, right? Which would then kind of translate to even more dramatic action to external forces. Makes sense? Thinking about like a leftist takeover is kind of funny to me though, because I just don't see it happening. There's this whole thing in California that the wealth tax is getting put on the ballot, and there are places in Europe that are kind of toying with a wealth tax. And let me tell you what, man, I have such a negative opinion of wealth tax. I think that it would be so disastrous. You know, like there's lots of things that, well, if you do that, that wouldn't be very good. That could cause a recession. That could have these negative impacts, yada, yada, yada. A wealth tax is something that I think could literally destroy society. Like, I think that if you come in and you have a wealth tax and then that's allowed to stand, that the Supreme Court doesn't smack it down and say that's unconstitutional. And they actually have that in California, then what's going to happen is next year they're going to say, oh, actually, now the wealth tax is 50%. And then they're going to come back and they're going to say, actually, now the wealth tax is everything that you make over $500,000 or a year or whatever. Like it would be some upper limit on the amount of wealth that you're able to have. And everything else has to go away. And then when that doesn't do it, there's still inequality. People are still upset. Then they will just expand it until everybody pays a wealth tax. And meanwhile, anybody that has wealth will get out of Dodge. It would be a slow decline, but it would literally destroy the country. Luckily, I think what will happen is it will go on the ballot, or it is on the ballot in California. I think it's likely to pass. It will pass, and then the Supreme Court will rule it unconstitutional. So that would be the sort of thing that's like, you know, what would the left do if they implemented a military dictatorship in the United States? Like, I don't think that it would last very long. Okay, they're saying that Japan is intervening in the FX market. So I think a confirmation that they did, rather. I don't see that. I want to see that on Twitter. Is that actually what they're saying? Okay, the Nikkei. The Nikkei is confirming that Japan intervened in the FX market. Interesting. I was kind of asking ChatGPT for some ideas on our charts and stuff. And now all of a sudden I'm remembering some of these ideas that I've had in the past. There's actually so much that we can do. There's so much that we can do, or that we could toy around with and would be interesting. All right, we're gonna have fun with this platform, guys. I'm gonna do some unique stuff, I think. I like belted candles. I think one of the things that's kind of interesting is that the kind of the charts and stuff that I see people post that people seem interested and excited about are really just other ways of showing order flow stuff. You're like, there's a lot of complexity there, and so there's a lot of ways that you can show it. But the issue there becomes, okay, but what is actually really truly useful to you as a trader? Need a way to make it abstract and actionable. Well, I think that we need more data. We need more like analysis on which features actually provide the most edge to a retail trader, and then what is the best way to present that piece of information to the user. Because like that's the thing, is you can go into increasingly more obscure ways of showing the order flow, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it helps you. And I have some ideas about things that I can do to change the look and behavior of the chart that would be unique. and that are along the lines of things that retail traders want to pay attention to. The things that I know retail traders pay attention to, and they would say, oh, well, that matters to me, right? But I would also like to be able to say, here's something that you had never thought of before that actually you should really care about. Heavily shorted Hertz soars on Uber robo-taxi deal. We'll be right back. All right, I want to write down some of these ideas that I'm having. in here. Let's see here. Question is whether states and groups whose policies are based on religious doctrines and which hold a different vision of the state and morality. I believe the answer to this question will be key to understanding conflict in the Middle East. Okay. I mean, I don't necessarily understand it completely. There are definitely people out there that like spend their whole lives studying this. The question is, with the information that we have, what do you do about it, right? Okay, so we are getting some news here at the top of the hour. It's not a huge one though, but U.S. leading index. have so many ideas that I could do for this that I'm not going to be able to do them all. Would need like a whole army of people to try out some of these ideas. There's definitely some kind of movement here in the treasuries. Like the level 2 is dancing around a ton. And I would say that the SPOOs look pretty volatile here. You know, I did that thing again where the volatility levels are incorrect because I didn't reload the chart. Is 5.2 correct? It must be, because when it's wrong, it's 5.02. So that's kind of funny. What's the VIX at? Yeah, I don't really get a good view of VIX with live data, but I'm sure that it's up today. You know, so the curious thing that's we're gonna see here on the S&P 500, you know, like I think if we come in here and show you a 5-minute chart, kind of puts it in perspective better. So they are retracing some of the movement that we saw overnight and going back to what the close was. But, you know, like the market hasn't had its say on what it thinks about these big tech earnings yet. Well, there's a headline coming through that Trump is floating a new plan for a coalition to reopen the strait. It is kind of curious. Maybe they've thought, oh yeah, maybe European powers will kind of think about this again and be like, yeah, actually we do need to do this because things really suck for us right now. I want to do a little bit more reading. So now that I've done some brainstorming. So here's a story on Zero Hedge. The low hire, no fire jobless claims unexpectedly plunged to record low. We have gone from a low hire, low fire economy to an AI chatbot hire, no fire. We joke, but really there is no other way to explain what is going on here. This morning, the Department of Labor reported that in the week ending April 25th, jobless claims fell 26,000 to 189K from an upward revised 215K compared with median estimate of 212. And are you sitting down? This was the lowest weekly jobless print on record. So that's good. With the estimated range at 205 to 228, today's print was not only far below the low assessment, but a 6 sigma miss to estimates. While one can normally blame this on season, I hate when they use like this is a 6 sigma miss because people think that that is like historically how big of a miss is this? But it's how big of a miss is it relative to the expectations based on the sigma being based how far outside of the expectations it is. While one can normally blame this on seasonal adjustments, the unadjusted number also plunged to just 179K in the last week. Continuing claims also fell to 23K fell 23K to 1.785 million in the week ending April 18th. This was the lowest since early 2024. Those wondering what was behind the unprecedented drop in claims, the answer appears to be a crash in New York State initial claims. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's an interesting chart. New York saw a huge decline in claims, and Rhode Island saw a slight increase. That's a little concerning, though, because we're starting to see more and more signs that some of the economic oddities, let's say, that we've been seeing are because of artificial intelligence. And I think that we're only just now getting into the place where it like really affects companies. So it might be another year before we can really make firm conclusions. But we're starting to see like the beginning signs that it's affecting them. I don't want that to be like a negative thing, because you think like, oh, like here comes like everybody gets fired and we're all replaced and yada. I don't think that it will work out that way. But it does kind of suggest though that if something happens with the build out of data centers, that the demand is just not as high, that all of these valuations and everything have to come back, and there's kind of a collapse in that market, that it will have pretty widespread effects in the economy, and it would be very disruptive. Okay, here's an interesting thread that I find a little curious on Reddit. Let's read it. From r/vibe coding. Title: The vibe-coded graveyard is getting out of hand. Feels like there's an ever-growing graveyard of abandoned vibe-coded projects and nobody's really talking about it. I get that it started as fun, spin something up in the afternoon and see what happens, but now everyone's trying to ship the next big thing, and it just feels aimless. Like people come up with an idea, convince themselves it's gold, vibe code the whole thing, and then what? The barrier to build has never been lower, which is incredible, and vibe coding isn't the issue, but it feels like 80% of people don't think it through before starting. Like what a real product takes, you know? There's a difference between building for fun and building something people actually want, and most people seem to skip figuring out which one they're doing. As someone new to this space, it's pretty astounding. That is kind of funny. So something else that's going on in the tech world. The painful death of GitHub. Yeah, like it actually sounds like there are two things happening. One is that Microsoft bought GitHub and Microsoft is just turning everything into slop and kind of turned a lot of their efforts into AI this and AI that. And that made the platform worse. So that then when vibe coding came along and literally everybody is putting stuff on GitHub now, they just literally cannot keep up with the demand. I don't know, man. This has kind of been a weird session. So we have moved during this session, during the regular session, this entire range. So it does seem like that there has been some opportunity, but it mostly happened at the very beginning. And we have kind of gotten back into this, like, it's really stuck. Even though the book is giving me a lot of signs. Well, so there was a good tick. But the book is giving me a lot of signs that something's going on. Okay, now that was interesting. That actually makes me want to kind of just go in short. I think I'm probably too late, but... And look at that, and that bid just kind of melts. Okay. And right back up. Huh. Oh, a little suspicious, don't you think? It's like 3 good solid ticks down. Just each time, good stack, bid melts, tick down, big stack, melt, right? And now it's just doing it right back the other way. It is a little suspicious. That's kind of weird. My news squawk's saying that stocks are extending their gains, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, no, they're still down. It's been quite some time that I've seen ES and treasuries moving in the same direction. You know, for a while there, there was definitely some, well, I can't remember anymore. I think that it was anti-correlation before, right? There was times where the treasury moved up and the S&P would move down and vice versa. And then we've seen things where I wouldn't necessarily call it correlation, but it is correlation, like just everything selling because of the Iran war, right? But over the past, I would say 2 or 3 weeks, the action has seemed to be completely disconnected. Like if there is a move, you know, like a headline comes out about the Middle East, right? And everything sells off or everything buys up. And they all do it all at once just during like that one period. But then when you go back to regular action, the instruments seem completely disconnected. And it has been like that for quite some time, and I do find it a little bit odd. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen what Japan... Have you seen what Japan was saying this morning? Well, I mean, they intervened in the FX markets. We know that. I do wonder if the reason that I've felt like some of the treasury action has been lackluster is because Japan just has not been as involved in the bond market. You know? There's like heavy liquidity, so like liquidity providers are doing well, but like no really big guys are really coming in and playing. And that kind of gets me going on other things because, you know, there's all this stuff about the budget and Congress is never going to make a realistic budget. It's just, you know, complete impasse about everything now, and who's going to buy the bonds? Like if Japan can't do it anymore, the Europeans hate us, who's going to buy the bonds? And the more dead this market becomes, the more worried I become about we might see another major move in rates. You know? I can see it because just like with me, like honestly, stream has been a little boring lately. You know, like I wouldn't fault anybody for tuning out just because we haven't been taking very many trades, and I just haven't seen really strong reasons to get involved in the treasuries. It's just like the flow isn't there. It feels like in some respects it feels like summer to me. Maybe I should just be spending the whole session coding. Kind of thinking tomorrow that I'll do that. We can still stream, but why? It's just kind of weird. I don't think that it's a thing that will last forever. Someday in our lifetimes it'll come where everybody will want to be the bond trader. It might only last a week, but all of a sudden everybody will think that they're the expert bond trader, right? Or at least ZN trader. Maybe we could come in and do this thing where, like, you know, you just take a one ticker, you know, and it gets so good at that. You're making a ton from that, and then you go and you make a big noise about it on social media, and then everybody will want to come in and do that, right? Ooh, I can get a 3-in-1 heavy foam plyometric box for $174. I kind of want that. Actually, maybe I don't, because I think that my kids would play with it and hurt themselves in the garage with it. You know, I was thinking this morning, for some reason. Oh, I remember what it was. It was there's a guy, I don't remember who it was on TikTok, but it was basically somebody accusing women's political opinions of being, you know, like kindergarten level thinking sort of a thing. And like it just sounds so like, well, you're not really going to bring anybody to your side talking like that. But is it true? Is it true? Well, I think that there certainly are some people out there that have a level of thinking about politics that is grade school level, that is literally like, you know, you're all supposed to get along, we're supposed to share that kind of stuff. How prevalent that is, or how much of an impact that kind of thinking is having on voting patterns and so forth, is unclear. That might be just be, you know, you're making something that's not really big into a bigger thing. What's you know, there's no data on like what percentage of women actually are thinking like that, right? I'm gonna bet you that the majority of women, the reason why they vote the way that they do is because of access to birth control. But that is an issue that people are prone to. So, like, how would you talk about it? How would you teach about
Block
it? Well,
guy.
I think the way that I would teach about it is not by like belittling a group or anything like that, but just saying, okay, if we're going to develop systems, how do we need to think about them? When we are building a system, there are certain issues that you have to deal with when things scale. So take, for instance, just your own household. So there's 7 people in my household, right? And, you know, everybody is like teenagers. I can be pretty liberal with the rules. You want to go somewhere, you don't necessarily have to, you know, tell me or ask permission or anything like that, but you have your phone on you, right? So I can see what you're doing and whatnot. Everybody's responsible. We can be really lax with the rules, right? But then what happens? We have an autistic child. So now you have an autistic child. There's certain things that we could do before that aren't really allowed anymore. Like you can't just go into the backyard whenever you want because Asher's going to follow you. You have to keep the door locked. Oh yes, we're going to help him. Okay. I will just leave it there. Be back. All right. For whatever reason, Asher just gets right on the bus for me. I don't think that it necessarily had anything to do with me, though, in that instance. It might have just been the day. Didn't put up a fight. Where is this one? Okay, have you guys heard this red button, blue button thing? Everyone on Earth takes a private vote by pressing a red or blue button. If more than 50% of the people push the blue button, everyone survives. If less than 50% of people push the blue button, only the people who press the red button survives. Oh, that's different than the scenario that was read to me before. Oh, if they're just presenting it differently. If less than 50% of people push the blue button, only the people who pushed the red button survive. How is the answer not you pushed the red button? Am I missing something here? Oh, that's weird. I'm just doing that. Yeah, we have to restart this. Am I missing something here? Okay. So, if the world presses 50%, if more than 50% press the blue button, everybody wins. Everybody survives. If they don't, and the red button wins, and I push the red button, I win. But if I push the blue button, I die. So the only way for me to guarantee my survival is by pushing the red button. But I look at this poll, and most people are saying they would pick the blue button. Well, yes, if everybody picked the blue button. But the problem is, then that would be the best scenario, is everybody lives because we all picked the blue button. But you don't have control over what everybody else does. You only have control over what you do. So if you do want to ensure your survival, you should pick the red button. How is this not everybody's answer? Am I missing something here? I don't get it. I must be missing something. Would you you guys in chat, would you pick the red button too, right? You pick the red button too. If the goal isn't simply to survive, but also minimize overall deaths, then it turns into an interesting game of trying to assess whether blue can get to a majority, or if it's a lost cause, in which case pressing red is the rational option. No, in both cases, red is that rational option. Just tell everybody to pick red. Nobody should pick blue. If we all survive, if just everybody picks red. Just don't be stupid. Come on. I guess the reason I'm confused here is because blue is winning in the poll. And I would think that if people understood the problem, that it should be like 90% red. But maybe people are virtue signaling. I would pick blue. Good for you. You'll be dead. Do I want to survive in a world full of red pressers? Not really. Yes, you do. I don't want to live in a world full of blue pressers. I'll dumb if you pick blue. The news squawk guy was just saying, okay, Donald Trump is going to see off King Charles. There's no podium, so there aren't any comments expected, except for that is Trump, so you never know. Have you guys seen this video of Nick Fuentes pushing a woman that came to harass him at his door? So without going into this whole discussion about he deserves it, she deserves it, etc., etc., etc. Am I the only one that watches that video and is like, is this woman like 20 pounds or something? Like, how does she just goes flying? What the heck? And she like kind of skids on the ground. It's like, Supreme Court guts Voting Rights Act. Reddit's headline on that. You know, the Voting Rights Act actually could be a big deal because blue states have been gerrymandering their things since forever. And it's not like Republicans are any better, but Republicans haven't been allowed to gerrymander their states because of minorities and stuff. And so they have to carve out districts for minorities and yada yada. So if you don't have to consider that anymore, they can just gerrymander straight up. Or not even, frankly, not even if they gerrymander, they could have, there's instances where you have Democrat seats in red states where there's not enough Democrat voters to really justify it. But because you get a district that's all one minority, then it happens. Right? So that alone would give Republicans an advantage. But then, you know what? I think then there's gerrymandering. There's the stuff going on in Virginia is quite frankly pretty horrible. The gerrymander in Virginia and the way that they've just so radically gone, like, you know, just barely. It's a relatively purple state, and now they're just going like far left. Wrecking crew. I don't think that should be allowed to stand. So maybe this means that they will finally tackle gerrymandering and create some sort of set of guidelines that prevents that kind of a gerrymander. Like that the outcome shouldn't be more than X% from what, like, the party affiliation and was or whatever, right? Like if it's 60% Republican, then 60% of the representatives, at least, should be Republican. And if it's, or this is a bad example, if 40% of the state is Republican, then 40% of the representatives should be Republican, and not like 10. So like maybe if 30% of the representatives are in there, that's okay. That's an acceptable range. But if there's not any Republicans, then, or Republican leaning districts, let's say, then that's gerrymandering, and that's not allowed. I don't know how you would create like legal standards for that. But maybe we finally do address gerrymandering at a federal level. But if we did, it would be advantage Republicans. It would be a slight advantage to Republicans. What the heck? I'd rather be a medieval peasant than work a 9 to 5? What is wrong with you? Okay. People are crazy. I was thinking in here, you know, like, well, since it is tight and there's a little bit of movement, this could be a market where maybe we could just pull something out. But I've found this action over the past hour quite random. I don't think that I would have made money if I had tried trading it. If I had tried, oh, you know, here's the range, and I'll just fade the range. I don't think that that would have worked. It's funny how a 9 to 5 became like just a bad vibe. It is quite a good schedule after you try working 14 hours in a bar 5 days a week. Well, okay, so like there's this broader thing that I think, frankly, kind of bothers me. Iran says they're going to halt attacks in Lebanon to remain with U.S. talks. I want to go on like a big long 30-minute rant, but I don't think we have the time. I'm just realizing it's time. But it really bothers me that everybody has come to this conclusion that I just want to be at home. Like, everybody wants to work from home. Okay. You realize there's problems with that, right? Like, I don't think it's a good thing for you to be at home all day. And you don't have the same kind of interactions that you do when you're in the office. Okay? Like, staying from home is great because you don't have to travel. And that can be a big deal for some people, right? But And a hybrid, you can do hybrid. Like what I'm doing right now is a hybrid. Work from home today, and then work from work tomorrow. But I think back on when I was just work from home, and like there wasn't as much progression in the career. There wasn't as much progression in the company. It was just kind of everything was at a standstill. So it's like that forced interaction from just having proximity, like physical proximity to people, creates opportunities. And we now have 2 generations of people that don't see any value in that. Bothers me. Doesn't work for me. I lose my motivation pretty fast. I feel too motivated these days. Like I have more motivation than there is any time or energy in the world or even in a company, like the number of things I'd like to do. Yeah, I'd like to do this. Yep, but first we have to do this and this and it's just, there's always those roadblocks. Could you get all of the roadblocks out of the way and just do anything that your mind comes up to? That'd be amazing. But then that would probably kill you. Probably then you'd realize how dumb all your ideas are. That's what some vibe coders are finding out, huh? All right. Well, I should get going though, as I got to prepare for work and everything. So I will see you guys tomorrow, Friday. Do we have? I don't think we. Well, it's not non-farms tomorrow, is it? Because usually when non-farms, when the first Friday of the month is also the first day of the month, they usually don't do it, right? They usually push it back. But let me just come in here and check. Yeah, not. We just get ISM, ISM manufacturing, which is a pretty big data point, by the way. So, and usually not released on a Friday. So that's cool. Have a good one. Thank you, Apache. Thank you, guys. So I know that it's been a little bit quieter of a stream lately. Part of that is just kind of the market and where we're at, but we're going to be here. We're going to try and keep it entertaining and most importantly, valuable for you, right? So I'll see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay excellent.